Okay, so basically recently I did a caricature for this company, Missing Link in America, and they wanted Abraham Lincoln looking like he's eating a hot dog and a beer, and it kind of inspired me to get this crazy idea for what to do for the Patreon monthly challenges. And the idea was to do something similar to this, but obviously full-bodied, and to do what's known as Celebrity Sunday Poser. So the idea then would be to actually, instead of doing my typical Celebrity Sunday, I would actually do a three-dimensional caricature of a famous person, and I would put him in an angle and do something kind of weird to them that would basically warrant some kind of strange aspect to them, like I have done here basically. So the idea now is I wanted to do it obviously and render out to show you the example, so when you start becoming a patron you'll understand what I'm doing. And so I'm doing a series of videos to show you this process. And so I wanted to keep the idea of doing Abraham Lincoln. I came across this old photograph of him here when I was doing the research for this image, and it got me thinking. The way he's sitting and everything reminded me of somebody who's wanting to do something basically. He didn't look like he was actually sitting there aimlessly resting or whatever. Obviously he's taking the picture. But then I did some research and I thought, what can I do to make something similar to this with this kind of image? And I came across this picture and I thought, wouldn't it be great if Abraham Lincoln was sitting there, instead of playing a classical guitar, he was actually playing a Fender Stratocaster or something, so there'd be an amp and things like this around him. So what I'm thinking of doing is using this as the kind of posture pose, and using this as a reference, and creating what's known as a Celebrity Sunday Poser caricature roughly around this idea. Because what I really like about this is the way that you got colour mixing with the actual black and white. So it'd be nice to actually have him with a coloured Fender Stratocaster and everything else around him is in colour. Maybe I'll put the glasses on again. So that's my idea, and what I'm going to do now is to show you the whole entire process from start to finish, how I get to the point of doing the finished render. Okay, one of the tools I really like using when I design more dramatic shots and everything is SketchUp. Used to be via Google, but it's now another company. But anyway, I use SketchUp quite a lot when I look for things, and I try to find free models on their 3D warehouse site. And what I did for this design is I looked on there for certain files, and one of which was the amplifier that I use in the actual design. What I do is I basically also, instead of going onto the default styles, which is probably that one, okay, I basically go to photo modeling, choose that, and then I go to edit, make the point size 1, which means the line's a little bit more clearer, and then just ramp this up to almost black, so I can see the lines a bit more clearer. And then what I tend to do is I then render that out as export it as a 2D graphic JPEG, and I place that, and you'll see later on I basically place that into the actual setup image that I do. So that's one of the ones I did. I also have a second acoustic guitar which I want to put in the background, like so. I've done exactly the same thing. And also there's a Fender Stratocaster which I used, which is not listed there, so I'm going to look for it for you. Not sure which one I used. Oh, there is that one. Okay. What I've done is I've basically, if you remember the picture, I've realigned them and rotated them and adjusted them so they fit into the actual location where I want them, and as I said, I'll just then render them out as a JPEG. So that's the next stage. I've got all the referencing material together, including the images I need for the actual design. Okay, so now you basically then put everything into Photoshop, which is the next stage. So I'll go here, I open up, I've already created a setup file. As I said, I've got the main character, like so. I just knocked it down so I can see the actual wireframe elements above it, and I placed the guitar, the Stratocaster. I may have to adjust it a little bit, I don't think it's the right size, but it kind of fits into where the acoustic one is, so I might keep it like that because it works well. And I've got the amplifier to the left of the guy, and the second guitar to the right. I may draw that even a bit more. I don't want to get too close to this because it may make it look a little bit odd. Okay, and that's basically my setup that I've done. What I'll do then is I'll do a pencil drawing, obviously change the man and the chair into the necessary elements for the period for Abraham Lincoln. I'm not going to do the exact chair because it would be really hard. I found something very similar to this for reference, but a lot of the chairs actually been taken up by this here, so I'm going to do that and use everything else as reference to actually build up the caricature like so. Okay, and then I've got to start painting, so that's the next phase. Okay. Okay, so I did a rough overlay of the actual images from the referencing. I also added the perspective grid for the background, which I'll deal with later. But I'll just quickly show you that's what we had, which was the guy sitting in a chair, and I also had the guitar and amp and Fender stuck in there. I also threw in the chair, which I wanted, which is a bit more colonial. So I wanted to make it look as close to the actual image I showed you earlier. So what we can do now is to move on to the next part, which is to basically draw Abraham Lincoln's face in the space, and then adjust the clothes slightly to make them look more like the ones that he has in his picture, which is this one here. Okay, you'll notice he's got a big lapel. It's kind of got bow tie, and the clothes are a little bit baggy around the arms and everything as well. So we're going to adjust everything to make it look a little bit more like him. So what I'm going to do is copy him, move over to there and paste it in, move it out of the way so it doesn't distract me while I'm doing this. Resize him, and what we're going to do then is to just do the speed render of me doing a caricature here. So I won't basically show you all the technique while I'm drawing it, so I'll probably pause and then do it. But before I do that, what I'm going to do is to add another white layer over the top, and this will allow me to then just mute out all the pencil work, so I can actually then see what I'm doing when I'm doing the actual rendering of Abraham Lincoln over the top. Okay, so I'm going to come back in a bit when I've actually finished the speed render. Okay, so I basically ended up with my first render candidate, which is a clean version of all the elements I want to use in my design. You'll notice I've changed the head. It's now got Abraham Lincoln on there. I've made some of his clothes a little bit more baggy and jiggied out like he is in the picture. So what I will do now is turn this into the render version, probably render out the background first and then start detailing. I usually tend to start with the face and then work down. I'm going to have to find a reference picture for the guitar, the Fender Stratocaster, this guitar and the amp, because basically I use 3D models, so I'm not going to be able to find any detailing on those to allow me to colour them properly, so I'll have to find some reference colouring for those. And also I'm going to have to figure out how to do the chord coming from the actual guitar. Okay, but that's basically it. I'm going to start rendering this in the next couple of days and have it finished within, maybe this kind of artwork takes maybe 4 or 5 days to do. Okay. Okay, so the rendering's finished, and this is the final piece of artwork. This is the kind of thing I'll be doing on Patreon every month. A different character sitting in a position or standing in a position with some kind of oddity about them. This is a kind of a nice finished picture actually. I quite enjoy doing this. The difference between black and white and colour made the whole thing work really well, I think. And I've got some lighting and added the shadows to give it a little extra pop. But I'm just going to go around the image just to show you the different detailings, just to zoom in. Again, that's the face details. Clothing, this is a guitar. I can put some of the numbers on. Okay, all the screws are there. This is all accurate to the actual design of the actual guitars and everything. These are all the pull things, and you can put the Fender Stratocaster logo on. Okay, this is the other guitar with its tuning forks. Okay, and some of the detailing inside the actual thing, all the grain of the wood. Okay, which is quite easy to do. I'll do in one of my tutorials. Okay, this is the lower part of Abe. The chair detailing. I must say actually at this point this is the one thing I don't like about the picture, but for some reason the perspective didn't look good. Finally, this is a Marshall amplifier. It's basically made from several different references, so it's not actually a physical amp you can get, but I basically designed it using some of the elements I liked, and so forth. And so that's basically it, the wire coming out, going into the thing. And this reason it's called the Rushmores is because I want to do a series of the four presidents from Mount Rushmore, all playing musical instruments, and then have them sitting as a band. So this is what's going to happen over the next few months of Patreon. So I hope you like the image. That's a full speed render and a little bit of explanation, and I hope to see you again soon.